Ed Gronewold, born November 4th, 1949, and I live in Newfoundland, Minnesota.
Okay. Which war did you serve in?
Vietnam.
Which branch of service were you
I
in?
was in the Air Force.
What was your rank?
Staff sergeant.
And when you were serving in Vietnam, where did you serve?
Cam Bay, Nha Trang, Pleiku areas,
Okay.
central, basically.
Central. Were you drafted or did you
I
enlist?
enlisted.
Where were you living at the time that you enlisted?
Minneapolis, Minnesota. Born and raised Minneapolis, South Side. Love to still visit there. You know, we'll always be home, but after a day or two, time to get back up here where it's safe and sound, so to speak.
Yeah.
I graduated from high school and basically went right into the service, just within 6 months of graduating. So.
What did your family think of you enlisting?
It was a thing to do. So
Did you have any veterans in your family?
I did. My dad was a veteran, of course, and a couple of my uncles.
Which war was your...
He was in World War II.
Okay.
My dad was.
So after enlistment, what happened? Did you leave right away? Was there a waiting period?
I enlisted probably in the fall, maybe September, October, and then it was February 29th, actually,
What year was that?
1968.
And then what happened? Did you go to basic training?
I did. I went to basic training in Amarillo, Texas. And after that, then I went to, I was a medic when I was in the Air Force. So then I went to a medical service specialist school in Wichita Falls, Texas. From there I went to Kinchlow Air Force Base, Michigan, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, actually. Was there for 6 months, bored out of my mind, and said, I'd like to go overseas. And they said, we've got the place for you to go. So,
Yeah.
came home for a couple of weeks, and then went to Nam.
Just to talk about the basic training a little bit, since you were a medic, was your basic training experience different?
The initial basic training wasn't, but then when you went on to school,
Okay.
yeah, then it was a little bit different.
What was the learning environment like?
Just, they wanted to see if you were comfortable with being a medic, one, and obviously I must have been. I enjoyed what I did. And I remember there were a lot of people that came into a medic field that were kind of weeded out, so I don't know if that was good or bad. So.
When you went over to Vietnam, what were your days like?
Worked a lot of intensive care when I first got there, and then did a lot of triage work when they bring wounded in. You know, sorting them out and getting them to the right places that they had to be, whether it be surgery or whether it be morgue. Unloaded a lot of body bags from a lot of helicopters.
So were you right in the combat areas?
Not necessarily. No, we were they call it attack hospital. So you were away from. We were in a place that we stayed most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They brought the sick and wounded to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were your living conditions like there?
I lived in a corrugated, what they call it, a hooch. Basically just kind of like a pole barn, I guess that'd be the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Pallets on the floor, sandbags up to the rafters. Hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you eat?
A lot of sea rations.
And what did those consist of? I guess I don't even know.
Sea rations are food comes out of a can. okay, and you get packages of rations basically once a week or so, and then you just sort through them and trade with everybody to try to get something that was halfway decent to eat. Plus then we did have a chow hall also, but there was not a lot of consistency as far as food, hot food. It was always kind of special when a package from home would come, because it was just kind of a treat, you know.
Yeah. How long were you there, and did you have any leave so that you could go somewhere else while you were overseas?
I was there for just about a year, maybe 11 and a half months. And about halfway through, I did go to Bangkok, Thailand for 5 days.
Okay.
So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful country and lots of fun.
Did you go with any other medics that were on leave at the same time, or?
A plane load of us went, but not really any people that I knew well anyway. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much got to go when they told you you could go.
Okay.
So,
And that was just for 5 days?
5 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any memories from when you were a medic that really stand out in your mind that you'd like to share?
Remember one fellow who was, actually he was on the base I was at, and we got rocket attacks. And he was sitting at a table having supper, and a rocket went off outside, and a piece of shrapnel came in through his back and came out his chest. And I remember we were hanging units of blood, and as fast as we would put them in, they were coming out. But you know, that's just something that you did. But he did, imagine, eventually they did patch up the wounds, and then all of a sudden the blood stopped flowing, so he did survive. So that was pretty exciting. I remember that, yeah. I remember a little baby Vietnamese that came in with its mother that had been, I don't know exactly what happened, what kind of injuries or wounds that it had, but I remember that baby passed away, but then they started CPR on her, and we were able to bring her back too, so that was kind of, I remember that, that was pretty exciting. Remember treating North Vietnamese POWs, you know, and just the look that you'd get from them, and it was always kind of a, you know, I always kind of wondered why I was doing this, why I was taking care of him when I knew that not that long ago he was trying to get rid of me. But you did it, and I'm sure that they were appreciative of it. You know, just I would hope that they did the same to some of our people too. But I know there's still a lot of our guys that are still there that, of course, haven't made it home. And given the opportunity, I'd go back and get them. So that's the reason I wear one of the patches on my jacket.
What
That
patch
says
is
POW, MIA, bring them home or send us back. And I'm sure that when you talk to a lot of the other vets, particularly Vietnam vets, they'll tell you the same thing.
Can you, for someone that doesn't know a lot of history of the Vietnam War, could you explain what you mean when they say that you still have men over there?
Well, we're sure. I mean, we lost what, 17,000 people there, but there was still a lot of people that are unaccounted for, whether they were POWs or whether they were killed there, and we weren't able to retrieve their bodies. And I know that's one thing that's drilled in. You don't leave anybody behind. So number-wise, I'm not sure how many there still are, but I know they're there. And I'm thinking there might be a few that are still alive, walking around over there, or sitting in a cage somewhere, or there's possibly some that decided they wanted to stay there too. Don't know, but
Right.
They should all be home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other memorable experiences from your time there that you'd like to?
Sounds, smells, unless you've been involved in a war, the sounds of gunfire and the sounds of mortars and rockets, I mean, it's tough to explain. If you go to a celebration like we have here, let's say at the Marshall County Fair, and you have fireworks afterwards, and you always, you always have those one explosions that there's no color or anything involved. It's just you hear that big bang, and it just sucks the air out of you. That's what it's like. Whenever I experience that, it's brings back a lot of memories. Yeah.
So you have a totally different experience with fireworks than say, someone that's never been to war. They
I
don't
so.
have that.
I mean,
tied to
I'm
it.
sure that people that haven't been, they find that kind of exciting, and they are beautiful. I enjoy them immensely, but there's just certain times, certain sounds that, just kind of bring back some memories. So.
So, while you were in Vietnam, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Letters.
Okay.
I was kind of excited because I always used to get to write free. In the right-hand corner where the stamp goes.
Oh.
You didn't have to pay any postage. And it was a
What
big
a
deal.
perk.
Yeah, it was a perk. There you go. Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
And back then, of course, it probably got 6 cents to mail the letter. But yeah, that was always exciting getting mail, and you didn't get it that often, but.
How long did it take for a letter to come back?
I don't really know. It seemed it was always like a month or so. When you write home to mom or dad about something or ask a question before you got an answer. Sometimes it was a little faster than that. You just never know. But when you'd get mail, you'd always get 5 or 6 letters. So.
Does your family keep the letters, or do you have them?
I might have 1 or 2 left. I think maybe my mom probably kept a bunch of them.
So, was there anything back at home that you were really missing while you were in Vietnam?
Yeah, I missed just being home. Missed one of my other brothers went into the service while I was. Well, actually, I probably still had about 6 months to go when he enlisted. And I miss being there when he signed that paperwork, and I was pretty proud that he did that, And my little sisters and brothers that were still running around, they didn't get to see some of what they were doing for that period of time.
How many siblings did you have?
4.
4?
2 sisters and 2 brothers.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of your brothers joined the service. Did any others?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Was he, do you think he was like looking up to you? Is that?
I think he always did. He just recently passed away, actually. But he always said that, that he always worried about what I would think or do about some of the things that he did. So, yeah.
While you were working as a medic, did you feel a lot of pressure or stress, or did you feel like worrying wouldn't help anything? Or, what were your feelings when you were having these soldiers coming in?
You just did what you had to do. That work had to be done, and the wounds had to be patched, and supplies had to be brought in, and whatever needed to be done, you did.
Was there any specific, was there any specific job as a medic that you felt that you really excelled at? Was there anything that you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Working under pressure. Yeah. That's why my wife now, she tells me too, I would have been a good medic, paramedic. you know, here in the States, but I never really pursued that. Although when I did get out of the service, I went to work at the VA in Minneapolis for about 10 years as a medic.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
but then I kind of got bored with that and came up this way, so, yeah.
So, was there anything you did for good luck? Like any?
I still do.
Oh yeah.
Just double check everything. You become very compulsive. You know, I mean, you do the same things all the time. Like before I go to bed, I always go and check the door and make sure it's locked. Or I'm kind of crazy about when you finish a meal, you do the dishes. You know, a lot of people, I mean, I go to people's homes and there's dishes piled up. You know, I just kind of, God, I can't stand this. It's all I can do not to want to dive in there. Yeah, I don't know.
Did you go into the service that way, or do you think being in the service made you more particular?
It made me more particular. Although I was kind of fussy about those kind of things before, but not to that extent. And as I get older, it seems to get worse. My fuse is getting shorter.
My next question would have been, where did you travel while in the service? But you went to Thailand on your leave, and then okay. So, do you recall anything? I know that obviously it was a very hard time, but in those hard times there are funny things that can happen. Was there anything particularly humorous or unusual that you remember?
I found it funny a lot of times the interaction that we had with some of the members of our company and things like that, just like how the people from New York would interact with the people from Minnesota, or how the Hispanics or the blacks would interact amongst themselves and with us and stuff. So that it was funny how we were all so much different, yet we were all the same. And yeah, so a lot of joking about that. I remember one time, black man, he was a great friend of mine, but I can't remember exactly what brought it on, but he told me, he said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And I said, "Say it right, I'm white and I'm glad." And he smiled from here to here, and we laughed for the longest time. But yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
And you're constantly ribbing each other, cutting each other down and stuff. Just, I mean, no different than you do nowadays with some of your friends, or your hubby does, or whatever it is. It's just. But then that's all you did, because that's all you had to do. You know? So,
Did you stay in touch with anyone that you met?
not many of them.
Okay.
No, not many. There were a few.
Okay. So, were you in Vietnam when the war was over?
No.
No. Okay. So, you were a medic there for a year.
Yep.
What did you do after you left Vietnam?
I came back to San Antonio, Texas, where I was a medic there too also. There I was promoted me, and I got to be what they call a ward master, where I worked in a hospital, and you had, you know, your medical surgical wards, you had your different specialties in medicine, and you had X number of beds in each one of those wards. And so then I was in charge of scheduling other medics to work shifts around the clock and stuff like that. So that was kind of a perk. But after about 8 months, I got bored out of my mind there, so I said, "Send me somewhere else." So they said, "Well, we can send you to the Philippines, but you have to extend your enlistment to go, because it was a 15-month tour." and I only had 11 months left to do. So I signed up for 6 more months to take that tour, and then I went to the Philippines. And there I worked drug detox for 15 months, and that was pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Because at that time, drugs were just rampant
What
over there.
what kind of drugs were people detoxing from?
A lot of heroin, a lot of heroin, a lot of marijuana. I mean, marijuana you could buy, let's say, a Ziploc bag, a quart Ziploc bag for $1. And everybody had it, you know, but heroin was real rampant when I first got there, and was assigned to a barracks. There were 4 guys that I shared a quad with, and on the table when I walked in, there was a Tupperware bowl, and inside the Tupperware bowl were all these colored pieces of paper that just caught my eye, but they were wrapped. So I said to one of the guys, "Well, what do you got there? What's the significance here?" And each one of them was a deck. They call it a deck of heroin, just out like you would have M&Ms in a bowl at home.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was the purpose of it being out?
everybody was doing it.
Even at the detox place?
Oh,
Okay.
or even on the base.
Okay.
Of course, if you got caught, you'd get in a lot of trouble. But
So it was U.S. soldiers that you were helping
Yes.
in the detox?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then anybody that needed that, they would send them to the Philippines? Is that what was going on?
No, it was just a lot of Vietnam vets and Southeast Asia. There was just a lot of, there was a huge drug problem. You know, and again, not everybody used it, but the guys that did, they abused it, they got it cheap. Yeah.
What was involved with helping them detox from heroin?
Just get him quit cold turkey, basically. And you got him in a hospital situation, put him, and there was, there wasn't a lot like a methadone or anything like that for anybody. I don't even know if that was around. It was pretty much you just put them in a hospital room and said, "Well, you're not getting any more, so deal with it." And there were a lot of fights among people, of course, and people trying to get out of the hospital, so you always had security police there all the time guarding the doors to try to keep people in. It wasn't real pretty, but had to be done, of course. But yeah, I was just amazed at how many drugs there were, and how easy it was to get it, how cheap they were.
Has that shaped any of your thoughts, like, as far as like, you know, like drug issues today? Just seeing the struggle that people go through, did that affect any thoughts that you have?
That I have now, I can understand how people can get caught up in it. They always scared me. You know, I just didn't want really anything to do with it. Although, I mean, you have to admit, marijuana wasn't half bad back then, you know, and you did that just like, again, because it was so cheap and whatnot. But then I kind of got away from all of that too. It's like anything gets old after a while. But then some people can't. So the ones that weren't able to get away from it were the ones that you hoped you could help. So, yeah.
So you were in the Philippines for how
15 months.
15? Okay. And was the war, no, just your enlistment period was over
Was
at that
over
time?
then. Yeah, that
Okay.
was in July of '72 when
So-
I got out.
When you got out, what did you do next? Did you have to go somewhere else for a while?
Nope.
Or?
When I got out, I mean, I was done. So I came home. That's when within probably a week, I had a friend of mine who was working at the VA hospital in Minneapolis, and he said, you know, they're always looking for help. So I went over there and applied and started working a week later, so it's kind of like,
Wow.
I'm back, so here
So
we go.
did you get any training, like school while you were there? Any like
In the,
college type stuff or anything?
in the service or afterwards?
Or after, or yeah.
No, not really, other than, you kind of picked it up as you went along. But then I became an EEG technician. So I did that for about 10 years,
Okay.
actually.
And that was all training through
Through the VA.
Okay.
Right, so they took good care of me there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they continue to do so today.
Mhm. So did you join the Veterans
I
Organization?
did. Member of the VFW and the American Legion. VFW, life member. American Legion. Started out in the cities, of course, being a member there, then came here, member of the Thief River for a period of time till the Legion was moved from point A to point B. Didn't really agree with the move. That just might have been me too. But, so then I went to Middle River. I've been a member there for 22, 23 years, and I'm the adjutant there.
And what is the adjutant?
The adjutant is kind of like the secretary of the organization of that particular post. Record the minutes of meetings, keep the informational boards updated. Actually, work a lot right now. Brett Brandon is the commander there, and I'm his adjutant, and so he and I have made a few changes as far as updating things like that. So he's been really good to work with.
What kind of time commitment is a position like that? I mean, how much do you...
It's not a heck of a lot. We meet one day a month, and basically I get information from the American Legion probably once a week or two, different notifications about upcoming events and sponsorships and things like that. So then he and I will sort through those before the meeting and decide which ones we should bring to the attention of the members and which ones make it into the file 19, as we call it. And there's lots of those different, and there's a lot of people out there looking for donations. I mean, I'm sure you know that. You get mail like we all do. And some of them, if they relate to the Legion, and we think it's a good thing. Like a lot of things that happen here in Marshall County, we donate to. Be like the food shelves, things like that. And when you have at Christmas time, when they donate to a lot of the families that have needs, different things like that. So you tend to lean and give a little bit more to those things like that, where there's just a lot of them.
The veterans organizations, the VFW and the Legion, do you feel like you've gotten a benefit from having relationships with other veterans?
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
Because you can talk to them about things, a lot of things that you and I can't talk about. And it's not that I wouldn't necessarily want to talk to you about it, but it's difficult for me to do that. And unless you've experienced it, you wouldn't understand. So. And I'm sure that you're going to hear that from a lot of other guys that you talk to. It's just certain things that if I have to explain it, you wouldn't understand it. So.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general? And if so, how?
Again, I believe that everyone should somehow get involved in the military. Again, Israel, I love what that country does, and as much as everyone when they get to a certain age. And it's usually actually after they get help with going to school, continuing their education, but then they're required to give back to their country for a number of years or whatever. I think it would help everyone grow up. And there's a lot of people, of course, that aren't suited for it. I don't know that any of us were, but you do it because it's the right thing you're supposed to do.
Mhm. Let's see. How did your service affect the rest of your life?
Again, it gives you direction, purpose. There's, you know, I would tell our girls, tell a lot of people that there's black and there's white. There's no gray area. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Lean toward the right. And that's drilled into you when you're in the service.
Mm-hmm.
When someone says jump, you say how high. Or you don't question orders. Not that we have to live in a society that gives orders to everyone, but there should be a semblance, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just goes back to the right and wrong and being nice to people, and hopefully they're going to do the same to you. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen all the time. So. But I think with a little bit more military influence, it might.
I guess, is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
Well, just that I think this memorial that's going to be dedicated here fairly soon, let's hope, and the remembrance of veterans is real important. And actually, I think that it's people as we go along, at least for Vietnam veterans, it was tough for us when we came home because, well, we were the only ones that have been in a war that we didn't win, so to speak. At least in history books, I guess it's going to be noted as that, but those of us that were there, we know that's not true. We went there and we did what we had to do because we were asked to do it. And I think most of them would say they'd do it again. I hope they would anyway. And but we're starting to be recognized a little bit for that. And this memorial, you know, that's going to have your Marsh County is a good thing. I mean, you look around at a lot of the other towns. Who would have thought little towns like Argyle and Newfoundland, Middle River, they all have memorials now. So it's nice. It's nice. It's appreciated.